This is a short story called The Useless Ones. Granny was going to be turning 70 soon and had invited all of her best friends and closest family to a party. It would be her last birthday party. I remember her telling me that she was a bit sad that she was already so old and had never gotten to go to Spain. I tried to cheer her up and tell her stories about all the good times we had in the past, and she tried to pretend like everything was okay. We had dinner, her favorite of spaghetti and meatballs, and we had a delicious carrot cake, and everyone sat around chit-chatting until late in the night. Sometimes we chatted about the weather, and sometimes we chatted about movies. We never chatted about what was going to happen when midnight came. The night drug on, and it began to rain. A black limousine pulled up, and Granny went in without saying a word. She got in, then waved to us as the car pulled away. We would never see Granny again. Like everyone else, when she turned 70, she was euthanized because it was agreed that after a certain age, you just are not very useful anymore. And rather than deal with sickness and dementia and ailing health and the burden of caring for the elderly, when you turn 70, you are euthanized. I used to think this was all normal. I guess because I grew up in a time when this had been a custom for 100 years, and it was rationalized because being old is such a burden, both to people and to society. And there's nothing worse than being a burden to society. When I was young, technology began to make some incredible advancements. Low-wage jobs like truck drivers and grocery baggers began to be replaced by AI and robots. A lot of people lost their jobs and had to live in small government towns that had been built to house them. I was going to college at this time that this was I was going to college at the time this was going on. I was going to an advanced Ivy League school, studying advanced astrophysics and writing papers on possible methods of space travel. When the first of these government towns caught fire and 1,000 people died because of a technical malfunction, I remember pretending like it was a tragedy, but deep down sighing in relief because at least it happened to useless people. A few years passed and I developed a unique fuel cell that would be able to propel rockets to the other side of the galaxy. Traveling at the speed of light, but utilizing unique physics properties, it could travel to and return to locations millions of light years away in mere minutes. I got married and my husband was beautiful, and our wedding was beautiful, and I was on the cover of People and Time, and everything in life was progressing just as it should. And then the illness struck. It started when we were on vacation on Europa. We were touring the northern part of the moon, in awe of the shimmering lights dancing around us. It was then that I realized that something was wrong. Everyone marveled at the sound that the dancing light was making as it was interacting with the gases in the atmosphere, but all I could hear was a loud buzzing in my head. I did not say anything, I just smiled and laughed and pretended like everything was normal. We talked about movies and about what kind of meal we would have when we got back to the hotel. A few weeks later, I noticed some spots on my face. I deduced that they are from some mineral insufficiency, but the normal vitamin mixes do nothing to clear my complexion. So I cover it up with foundation, and that works for a while. I go back to work, and immediately I notice that I am slow. I cannot make the calculations for space travel in my head that I used to, and I start mishearing things that other people are saying. I mistakenly use the wrong bathroom because I am so distracted, and then I try to laugh it off, waiting until I'm alone in my car on the way home to cry. I do not say anything about this to my husband, and he does not notice or ask. He is too busy talking about movies and asking about the weather, and the kids are too invested in their games to notice. But I notice. A few more weeks go by, and I am able to continue to pass. Then, one day comes, and my husband asks me why I have not picked up dinner and I honestly cannot remember. He smiles and tells me that everything is okay, and then a few minutes later, a black limousine comes and takes me away. I do not fight back because I know it is useless to do so. I just accept that I am no longer useful and simply request they figure out what is wrong with me. The man in the back of the limo smiles and presses a button. A full body scan is done, and it is determined that I have simply been under a lot of stress, too much to remain clear and lucid, and that it has led to these weird episodes of forgetfulness as well as caused skin discoloration because of the toxic effects of cortisol. I ask the man in the back of the limo what will happen to me, and he tells me that I have a choice. I can either be euthanized and recycled, or I can choose to be released into the wild. I choose the latter. The limo driver drives a while, then stops, and the door opens, and I walk out. I turn my back to ask where I am, but the limo has already left. I look around. It is an overgrown, decayed mess of a city. The sidewalks are still visible if you look hard enough, but they are mostly covered in grass and weeds and cracked. The buildings, likewise, are covered in vines and moss, and some of them have fallen over after years without maintenance. I walk for a while. I call out from time to time, but the only response I get are from birds or scared deer. It gets late, and I find a house that looks in decent shape and go in, on the lookout for any animal that may have made the house their home. 3 days pass this way. I begin to get very hungry. I find some old cans of soda and drink them, but there is no canned food in any of the houses or in any of the grocery stores. I begin to realize just how strange it is that there are no other people there, and I wonder why no one else had chosen this third path, that instead of either being euthanized or being a productive member of society, they decided to just walk away. And then the realization hits me. What if no one else was given the option that I was given? And I wander around for a few more weeks, growing weaker and wishing I were not alone. The animals begin to speak to me, telling me that I am not alone, telling me that everything is okay. My rational, scientific mind tells me that I am just dissociating, that this is just my mind trying to cope with a terrible situation. But deep down, I believe it. Finally, after a long and painful week where I can barely stand due to weakness, my heart gives out, and I perish, wishing there was a place for useless people like me. Hundreds of years pass and technology advances even more. It gets to the point that even highly advanced technical fields can be taken over by computers, and even creatives' works are done by AI. All that is needed are a few overseers to direct and control the technology. These overseers, who are rich beyond belief, spend their days luxuriating in eternally blissed out, chemically induced states. And then one day there was a huge solar flare, and all the technology, all the AI was fried, and the overseers became the useless ones. And without the technology to help them reproduce or help them find and make food, the last of the humans starved and died.